So, uh, this is week 5, which is actually week 6, but we skipped a week, so we're covering week 5, and we'll have to figure out along the way how to work with that. I'll get with Telly and see what he wants to do. So the first 4 weeks of all the slides are uploaded. Some of you have looked at those; they're available for you. And if you don't have access to that group, just send me a direct message, a DM um, to Dwight D. Frank on Facebook, and we'll get that done. But I think everybody is. I don't know if there's anybody that still isn't there. Um, and we're just grateful, Father. Thank you for the time together, and open our ears and open our hearts to hear the things that you had implanted in us. And I've already started the recording. So,
Amen.
so what kind of things have you guys come up with in this last 2 weeks?
Mm.
What kind of lessons have you tried to work with, or ideas that you tried out?
Oh. Um, in terms of like with the with the business side of things, I've been
With working with motivating people, working with getting people
oh
to invest
yeah,
their efforts and energies in a particular thing.
oh yeah. Um, I've been giving them like a reason to do it, like an
Uh-huh.
incentive to do it. Um, yeah,
Well, that's great because we'll talk more about that stuff today.
yeah,
Yeah, that's great. How's it been working?
yeah. It's been good actually. Yeah. I've been working with a couple of people. Yeah. And
Good.
like it's learning how to like using tools to motivate people to do a certain job or to do something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, it's been good. Yeah, yeah, using like an
Yeah.
incentive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's fantastic, Ian, because we'll talk more about that today and kind of figure out some ways to make that work a little easier for us. Great. Good
yeah.
job. Anybody,
Mm.
anything else?
I think just applying that what you were saying last week by taking the hits, but still continuing to keep moving and still
Uh-huh.
having that vision, casting that vision to to motivate yourself as well as leaders and leading by example.
Yeah.
And working hard, not to be lazy, was another thing that hit me last time when you were talking. Yeah, so I think um, I'll be on. It's I struggle a bit trying to motivate people towards a vision
Uh-huh.
at times, but if you haven't got your own vision, how can you cast vision? And
Yeah.
so this ministry has got away in such a visionary um, that the whole bigger picture. Sometimes I struggle a bit with it, but it's like when it just says staying in your lane and just running the race that you may obtain it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so because we are a
Yeah.
frontline ministry, you do take a couple of hits, but you just have to keep um, take a few hits and just keep going, keep moving, just keep getting back up.
Mm.
Lose a few rounds but you're still in the fight.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
And,
so
and part of the really
Dr. Wayne was talking about encouraging yourself in the Lord as well. So yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's
Yep.
great. That's a critical kind of thing to add to it and put it all together. And the cool thing for believers is we've got a great vision to start with. We've got the kingdom of God on earth to start with. We've got redemption and salvation and change and the vision that we have that we're all pursuing is great. But then, like you're saying,
There were lawsuits of renovation, you know? But he doesn't know.
yeah, there's some echo there. I couldn't hear you very well.
Mm.
Can you repeat that?
Mm.
Okay. But part of the challenge that we have is because we're not going to accomplish the whole thing ourselves. So we've got to take that little slice of the vision that's ours in our wheelhouse. And you mentioned Dr. Wayne's vision with Ignite, and it's more than any of us can do. But we can take our little piece of it and grow that one. So, yeah, great stuff, because we're going to actually talk more about those specific things today. And so those are really great. I really appreciate that, guys. Still making our beds in the morning?
Yes.
All right.
Amen.
Every morning.
Oh,
Yeah.
hallelujah.
Best thing to do.
It's and the point isn't just to do something for just to do it, but the point is to create patterns and habits of excellence, and to have a nice welcoming place when we're done at the end of the day, no matter how the day went. So yeah, good job. Let's jump into it then and kind of move ahead. One proverb that really kind of struck me: the same sun that melts the wax hardens the clay. And I was thinking about that. And I've read a lot of books and articles on motivation and leadership. And some of them, a lot of them I actually really don't like. And they have good ideas in them. But what they often will tell us is what worked good for me. And so somebody can say, I had this wonderful thing happen for me. This is what I did. And so you get this idea that I've got to do the same thing that worked there. Okay. Because the sun melted the wax for them. It did something warm and wonderful for them. But sometimes we don't need to do the same thing somebody else did. Sometimes what worked for them, melting the wax and making it nice, made the thing hard for us. And so we need to kind of remember that just because somebody tells us something that was a great idea and we might start thinking that we should do the same thing, that's really kind of an easy way out, because they tell us a specific story, but they don't really explain very well what was behind it. And I'm reading another book right now that a former pastor sent me, that tells the story of a transformation on a Navy submarine, a nuclear powered submarine. And when he took command of the submarine, it was the worst in the Navy. And so then he had 6 months to get it ready because to go on deployment, because they weren't ready by any stretch. When they got there, nothing was working right. And the people were just really in a bad way. And so he's going through the story of what he did. But the nice thing that he does is he tells us what the principle is, why it worked, and how to help other people apply that same principle. And so that's a really good way to do it. Is not to say just because I did it and I've got these ideas and this is how life works. Not always. We need to be smart enough when we hear ideas to understand, okay, that there's some good stuff in there, some good information. And I can take pieces of it, just like when we're harvesting from our garden, we can take the ripe fruit that we can use. The stuff that's not ready, we just need to leave there. So,
Yeah. Mm.
another one that was from Nigeria. This one's from this is a Maasai proverb. Don't allow the belly to make you useless. And the reason that kind of struck me is one of the things that we talk about and you hear a lot about in motivating people is that which is rewarded will be repeated. And I used to have a boss that said that all the time. But there's a little bit of a problem with that, because reinforcing good behaviors, getting just when somebody does something good, you give them. That's how we train a dog, right? And it works. And we can train people that way too, to some extent. And so we can kind of get people, if you do this for me, I'll do this for you, and use those kind of rewards. But what happens is it works okay for really simple things like training a dog. So if we want to teach him a simple skill or to get him to, show up to work on time or some things like that, then it does. But when you're talking about complicated things like learning how to set up a crusade or learning how to minister to people on the street, then trying to hold out little carrots in front of people and make them chase the carrot or work for the treat, it's not going to work very well. So that's one of those things that can melt the wax in some situations, but it'll actually bake the clay and actually won't work in other situations. And the guy that used to try to do it with me, he tried it with me and it backfired. And he didn't understand that the rewards he offered me I didn't want, and so then he was upset with me because they didn't do it. Well, I would have had he asked me, but he never bothered to ask because I told him I didn't want the incentive. So and then he was upset with me after that, which is, I guess, partly my fault. You guys heard this before? If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah, that's good.
You heard that?
Yeah.
To me, I like the basic idea. Obviously it's great to love what you do, but there's a little something else hidden in there. And if you're working in a situation where you don't really love what you do, then you say, well, I'm in the wrong job. I need to look for something else. How many of us know that as the Lord is training us and teaching us and growing us, that a lot of times we'll be in a situation we really don't like? Well, you guys have never been there because you guys are all, you guys are walking really close to the Lord and don't have those kind of problems. But I have. Um, but it's easy to kind of get this idea and start complaining and say, well, I don't like this. I need to find something else to do. And especially if we're working in ministry, that can kind of get our eyes off of our goals. It can get our eyes off of the Lord, get our eyes off of our purpose, and we can start getting dissatisfied and looking for something else. But a different way to look at that is to learn to love what you do, not to try to find something you love, but learn to love what you do. And I've told several people throughout my life, I've never had a job I didn't like. Now there's some tasks I did, some work I had to do that I really didn't like at all. And was really kind of nasty or hard or tough or stuff. But the job itself, sometimes it didn't pay very well or whatever, but I always enjoyed it because there are always things about that particular job that I really enjoyed. There was a time when one of the first jobs I had was working on a farm irrigating, and it was really, really hard. I could barely take a bath when I got home at night, and it was real. I don't know many people would have stuck with it, but my dad was my boss and I couldn't quit. So I stuck with it, but I would be so exhausted when I got home at night after working. I'd have a lunch break for about an hour, but other than that, I was actually on the clock for a good 12 hours a day, close to 60 hours a week. And just exhausted. I'd walk in, I could barely eat. I could barely, I didn't even want to take a bath. My parents would force me to take a bath, but I was just too exhausted. And after a while, I did the same job the next year. And I figured out how to do it a different way that really made a huge difference. But there were still a lot of things about the work, being out in the fields, watching the animals, the livestock and the wildlife and stuff around. And Seeing the sun come up and go down was really beautiful, and the scenery was beautiful. It's just a really beautiful setting. And
Mm.
when things were going okay, then it was just a lot of fun. I really loved it. So I always
Mm.
tried to find something. How many of you guys have realized along the way that sometimes you'll get an idea in your head and later on realize that wasn't you weren't as smart as you thought you were, but the Holy Spirit was teaching you something? Well, again,
Mm.
you guys don't have those problems. I have to get bonked in the head sometimes to let me know the Holy Spirit's been talking with me. But that was something I learned later on, was that the Holy Spirit really taught me that lesson. And I thought I was smart enough to figure it out on my own, but I said, no, I'm not that smart. The Holy Spirit really taught me that lesson, that there's you can always find something about a situation that you can enjoy. You just sometimes you got to look at it. So I loved what I did. Every job I had, I really enjoyed. So, but and we can do that too. Okay. The point is uh that when we're working with other people, we can help them to find things they love. Okay. The first thing we do, we've talked a lot about creating a positive culture. So if we create a good culture, and that's kind of part of what I heard Keith saying a while ago, was kind of, we've got this vision. I'm trying to work with this vision, and the vision really is a big part of the culture. So create a good culture where people enjoy being there, people enjoy working with one another. We've got goals, we've got vision and things like that. The other thing we can do when we're working with other people is if we're giving them assignments, try to give them, and if we're working with them for a long time, okay, if we're working with them for like, months or whatever, give them work, give them some variety now and then, but don't have them do the same thing day in and day out, but give them some variety. Sometimes just identify a certain specific things, get this particular thing done, and kind of cut it up into things where they can say, I did this, because we take a lot of times a real sense of accomplishment, feel good about ourselves when we say, here's a job that I've done, like making our bed in the morning. And the more we feel like it's impossible, and this is again, it's part of what I heard in what Keith was talking about, and some of Robert as well, is just uh, making sure people need to understand that what they're doing has value. They're not just doing make work kinds of things, where you give them a job just to keep them busy, but there's some value to it. Sometimes we can give them some self-direction and let them make some of the decisions themselves. We don't have to micromanage people all the time, but we can say, here's something you can do, and you really got all the tools to do it, so have at it, and go for it. And then just let them know how things are going. Just communicate with them, let them know how things are going. So if we kind of do those things, give them a variety of things to do, something where they can identify, this is exactly the thing I've done, this is the job I did, and I'm done with it, and I started and I finished it, and so on. If they feel like it's important and has value, that is a valuable work that they're doing for us, and why. And again, like he said, sometimes that's tying it to the bigger vision. Give them some self-direction and feedback, and those are the things that can really help them enjoy the work that they're doing. So, and honestly, I've noticed that Dr. Wayne does that a lot. That's really are the hallmarks of what I've seen him doing. Some people dream of success while others wake up and work. And on the one hand, that sounds kind of like we're talking about laziness, and I guess maybe a little bit we are. But I think there's something a little bigger here that we can take a look at too. Because everybody's got like their personal goals and objectives, things that they want to accomplish, certain things they need. Some people need to have people around. Some people are good working by themselves. I've always done best working by myself. I like having people around a little bit, but I don't. Little quick story here. Uh, we have four kids. Two of them have in a lot of ways are like me. In one particular way, they're really, really different. And is they have to have other people around. If they don't have some time fellowshipping with peers, they get weird. they get squirrely. And I remember with my son, we were living in Costa Rica for a while. You know, my oldest daughter and my youngest son, the other two stayed in the United States, but we were down there, and he was developing friends at school. He was going to a local school down there, and he was developing friends and relationships there. And he'd want to go out and do it with them, and I didn't really know them very well, and so I was trying to be a little careful. And after a while, I just realized that he needed that time with his peers. And so every once in a while, but I had to make sure that every few weeks, he had to have some time, uh, just hanging around with some of his friends. Otherwise, he was just kind of lose track of things. He was just get off center, off balance. So he had some social needs that I just had never understood, that people people have social needs, and so forth. And I was talking to a Costa Rican student who had moved to another part of the city, and the Costa Ricans are very, very family oriented. Very, if you do anything that interrupts their family relationships or their family time, they'll quit and they'll leave. You can't really force people into overtime in Costa Rica and a lot of those Latin American countries, because they won't stay. They won't work overtime. They'll say, "I'm not going. I don't need the money. I'll need my family instead." And so I asked this student about that, how it worked with him living in another part of the city. And he says, "Well," he said, I do it this way. I go to work during the week to meet my economic needs, but I come home on the weekends for my social needs." And I thought, okay, the little light starts to go on in my head that people have different kinds of needs. And that's really what I'm talking about, is that people have different kinds of needs. They have personal needs. Some people need to feel like they're achieving things with their lives. Some people feel like need the relationships. Uh, some people need to be directing other people. They need to be in charge of things. And so when we begin to tie the connections with their needs and connect their needs with the work that they're doing, their needs, their personal goals and objectives, where they want to go and what they want to do, and they begin to tie this together. This is what I was talking about with Keith a while ago, about the ways that we can kind of encourage people and help them to see how to grab onto a vision. Because part of the vision is, how does this work for me? How does this vision apply to me? And we don't need to always spell that out, but if we don't, I don't need to tell somebody, "I'm giving you this work and designing your work this way to meet your social needs." But if it meets their social needs, then they're happy with it. They may never figure out why, but that's managers. A lot of times, managers and leaders, the people that they work with, don't know what they did, and they don't know why they did it. They only know that things work. And I like this place. I like working with these people. It's just a good environment. Why? Well, they're doing a lot of things like working with me as an individual. They know who I am and know how to relate with me. And I don't even realize that they're doing things that kind of meet the things that I need in my life. So make those kind of connections. And part of what we can do with then there are actually two parts to that. And this is going to get, if this gets complicated, we can go back and revisit it again next week. But just think about it. If I need to understand that if I put out some effort, then I'm going to succeed. Something will happen. If I get up every morning and I start working on laying out my bed and everything, that I can actually make it work. Now, if I haven't been taught how to do that, or if I've got, some limitations, I've broken my arm and I can't, manage making my bed very well, I can try and try and try, but it's never going to look very good. And so the first thing I need to understand is, if I put in the effort, then things will happen. Now, for people in a working situation, if I don't have the tools or the resources, if I don't have the money, if I don't have the time, I can give the very best that I have, but I'm still not going to be able to make it happen. If I don't have the right equipment to haul all the the tents and the chairs and everything to another city, then I can put everything I have into it, and I'm not going to be able to do it on time if I don't have the time and the trucks to do it. So I've got to have everything I need to be able to put in my effort and achieve the outcome, achieve the results that we're after. The second thing is I need to understand that if I do achieve those results, then it's going to get me the outcome that I want. If I do get up there, we do get everything set up, and we're all ready for this tent crusade, then we have all the pieces in place, and people are going to, we know how to make it work, and we will find some rewards in doing it. We'll find that all the work we've done works, and people are going to understand that what they have done actually brought out the outcomes that win it. So I put in the effort, I get the job done, but getting the job done actually brings around the outcomes that we're after. Does that make sense? Or is that like confusing people? Any questions? Everybody's just sitting and are we all good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me give you another example. I had a guy working for me one time. I was doing construction, and I had a guy working under me who was a young guy who was totally out of control. When he was focused on his tasks, he was a very intelligent guy and a very energetic guy. And he was focused on getting work done. He was hard to beat. And as long as you taught him what to do and he knew what to do, he'd go like crazy. But if he wasn't in the mood to do anything, you could beat him with a club and he wouldn't move. He was, and so he drove into work late one day, which he did a lot. And I was kind of chewing on him a little bit. And he says, "Why? I get paid by the hour." And I look at him and says, "No, you don't." I said, your paycheck every week is determined by how many hours you work, but your pay scale is determined by how productive you are. If you become more productive and quit messing around all the time, then you'll get a raise. And that's my job. As his supervisor is to make sure that he got the raise if he was actually more productive. So I was making a commitment on myself. So he needed to see first off that if he did his job well, if he put in the time and the effort, got to work on time, did as he was told, and put some focus to his work, that he could actually be successful at work. He could actually do the job. But he also needed to understand, believe that if he was successful at doing the job, that he would get a raise. Okay, so there was two parts to that story, two parts to the equation. First of all, he had to know that if he put out the effort, he could get the jobs done. I knew he could, and he did too. The second part was if he actually did do the job, that he could get a raise. He never figured out how to actually do it. He wasn't disciplined enough to actually do it, so I never had to get him a raise. And so that wasn't a problem. But still, that's kind of the kind of thing I'm talking. I actually did see the guy a few years later, and he was working for an electrician, and they were subcontracting on a job I was doing, and he stopped me one day and he said, "I got to talk to you for a bit." And he said, "It took me years, but finally figured out that all the things," he said, "the things that I and the other superintendent had been telling him were really true, and he needed to focus on getting his life together because otherwise he was going to be useless growing up." And he had certainly a lot of friends who grew up that way. He said, "I couldn't do that, so I really started focusing." He was an electrician's apprentice at the time, and I asked the people he was working with, "Yeah, he's a great guy." So it took a few years for him to finally settle down, but he finally did. So that was good to see. Here's another one. You don't know till you've tried. How many of you guys have heard this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I don't know if I can pull it off, if I don't know that I can be successful, I don't know if I can actually do the job, then why bother? Okay. And somebody can say, "You don't know until you tried," but I'm still thinking on the inside, why bother? I have no idea what to do here. If we're leading or managing people, there are some different ways we can help them believe they can do it. And I know you guys can connect to these because I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen down there. One is you can learn by doing it. It's kind of like throwing a kid in the water and he figures out how to swim. Okay. Sometimes you just need to just jump in and try. And then later we realized, well, I have everything I need. I just didn't really see how to make it work until I was actually in it and had to do it, and then it worked. Okay. Sometimes we can't do that. Sometimes we have to watch other people do it, and we say, okay, now I see how it works. Okay. When you're taking the tents out for a crusade, you're learning more by doing it, but first you had to see it work before you could actually feel like you could do it yourself. If you'd never seen it work, then it would be tough to just go out and do it without ever seeing. There's too many pieces in the puzzle just to run out and do it if you're thrown out there. But seeing it happen and seeing other people do it, then you say, okay, I see how that works, and I can learn how to do that. So that's another way is we can do it ourselves. We can watch other people do it. Sometimes people just encouraging over and over again, you can do this. You can do this. I know you can do it. I know I know what you've got going for you. I know you can do this. And sometimes that can kind of convince us that we can give it a shot. And sometimes we just get pumped up and try something just because we're too dumb to know better. You know? So I don't recommend that one all the time, but it happens sometimes anyway. Yeah, let me at it. I'll be your Huckleberry. Let me go. Give it to me. I'll make it work. So, before people had a chance to actually do it, there are ways we can help them figure out how to do it along the way. Okay.
Mm.
You guys getting any ideas here?
Really good one is like the encouraging people. It's like from what I'm seeing, it's like a continual thing. Some people,
Absolutely.
some people
Yeah,
need it
absolutely.
more than others, and I guess maybe like that's something I could try over the next 2 weeks, is that encouraging people more to see a move, and like encouraging them into their gifts, sort of like, so that they can find the purpose in the vision, their purpose in the vision.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic, because a lot of times you can see things in people that they can't see.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times you can see things in people that they can't see, and so you know that they can do it, but they don't believe it themselves.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that constant encouragement, and we should always be encouraging anyway. Let all things be done to edifying, and edifying these build them up, encouraging them. So, so that's part of our the things Jesus told us to do anyway.
Yeah.
Mm.
Water everywhere, nowhere any drop to drink. Have you guys heard that one before? Water everywhere, but not a drop to drink?
No.
Had
No.
that down there. Okay. That's from an English, of a long old ancient English story. Yeah, and so I didn't know if the never mind. I don't know where I was going with it. Anyway, but we all have to have water, right? Water is kind of one of those important things for life, but there's a lot of other things that are important too. We've talked about some of those. Some people need success. Some people need relationships. Some people need to feel like what they're doing is valuable. Some people need family time. Some people need to feel like what they're doing now will lead to future opportunities so they can grow and develop and things. And so it's all part of who we are as individuals. We all are driven by different things. And so and again, this is part of what I heard in what Keith was saying earlier, was how to make things click for people when I'm casting the vision of people. Some parts of the vision aren't going to affect everybody the same. Okay, some part of somebody's vision is not going to really do for me what it does for you. And so I need to understand that, and the vision needs to be personalized a little bit for me, that's part of of working with people, is just getting to know them and know what makes them tick, know what is important and valuable to them. And then we can help see, and this is what I said to Keith, then we can help see how to tie their own direction with the vision that we have. Okay. How doing these kinds of things really does help. Sometimes it helps teach you diligence. And we don't want to start, if you learn to be diligent, then you know, that's kind of a silly thing to try, but still, all those kinds of things are part of how we can help people to move into their destiny, because that's really what we're kind of after with them too, is to help them to move into their destiny. So sometimes it's give them chances just to try new things. Sometimes people need recognition. Some people just need to know that people see them, and people, sometimes a pat on the back will do somebody a lot of good. Some people not so much. So we're all different. Sometimes some people like to get patted on the back and say, thank you, you did a good job. And some people just don't really care. You know, I know I'm doing a good job, so don't worry about it. So we can't do the same thing for everybody.
Yeah.
So the water we give them has got to be the water that suits them, not the water that suits somebody else.
Yeah.
Oh, back to Africa again. In Africa, no matter how far an eagle flies to the sky, it'll definitely come down to look for food. And if when we start talking about vision and really kind of high ideas and things, it's really easy to get our heads up in the clouds. A lot of times, and I found that I have an issue in reading scriptures or hearing people talk about scriptures. Then they get this picture in their head of what that looks like. You know, one of the big ones you see people doing that with is spiritual warfare. You see people doing these really elaborate drawings and paintings of somebody with this big suit of armor, and they've got their sword out and they're attacking this dragon with horns on it, and you know, trying to beat the devil. And so they've got this picture in their minds of what it's like. And so they're living in the clouds in their minds. But sometimes that doesn't really work. Sometimes you gotta come down to earth. You know, you got to come down and do the things. You got to come down and look for food. So no matter how high and lofty and high in the sky ideas and the conversations get, which is, you know, it's a balance in ministries that we've got to balance, because we're constantly trying to encourage people to move into their destinies in Christ, but somehow or another we have to put feet and hands to it as well. And so again, Dr. Wayne is just really excellent at doing this. So you can talk about people moving into their destiny, but it's not got to be some kind of a fake picture that doesn't really work. Now, people will really get wrapped up in these ideas, and if they're in a really visionary kind of thing, sometimes in prophetic ministries, I've seen it happen. Sometime in other kind of evangelistic ministries or worship ministries can do it a lot too. But you kind of get this idea of these wonderful things that are going on, and so that's the only thing that really works for you. And you kind of get it's easy for people to get the idea that I'm only doing here because the world needs me. If I didn't do what I did, then the world would fall apart. If I didn't lead worship the way I do, if we didn't take people into this high place in worship, that's where they meet the Lord. That's where they have a presence of the Holy Spirit. And if I didn't do my job here, then how would they ever meet the Holy Spirit? Which we know is not really true, but still, it's easy to kind of get that mindset. Okay, y'all know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Kind of get this big pie in the sky kind of idea. And so, but you know, if you stop and think about it, those people can have an idea about how important their work is and how important they are, but they still come to work for pay, right? They still show up on the stage or on whatever they're doing. They still, if you don't believe that, just you know, satisfy every need they have, and you know, if they won a $20 million lottery, would they still come to work every day? Would they still get up on the stage and do their job? You know, and a lot of them wouldn't. Well, a lot of would decide, well, God's blessed me. He's got other things for me to do, which means, move to an island somewhere or something. I don't know. But we don't need to we need to keep our feet on the ground. We need to keep the vision alive, but we need to make it something that's real and stuff. We don't want, and you don't want to throw water on people's vision. You don't want to put the fire out, but you don't want it to be such a high vision that there's something that doesn't actually have value to it, that they're not actually accomplishing the purpose that you're there for in the first place.
Mm.
Yeah, I forgot this one's in here. We actually talked about this a while ago. Smooth seas do not make skillful sailors. There's always a lot of challenges. Part of the job, we don't like every aspect of the jobs and the work we're doing. We may not like mopping floors, but it's really important. Okay. When I was thinking about this, I was thinking about a song that Ringo Starr did. Oh heavens, close to 50 years ago, I guess. He says, you got to pay your dues if you want to sing the blues. And sometimes we've got to be tried. We've got to be tested. We've got to have a little, we've got to be stretched a little bit. We've got to go through some fire sometimes to kind of temper us, to kind of make us solid and firm and unshakable, unmovable. And so just because things aren't going real smooth doesn't mean that we've missed it. And the people we work with need to understand that as well. That just because things aren't really smooth this time, just because we have to take the tent down because of a storm doesn't mean God's against us and we need to go somewhere else. Right? Because there's a lot of people would think that. Nasty storm comes in, well, God's trying to tell us to go somewhere else. No, he's not. We just means we got a job to do. So good job on that, by the way, guys. I was really, really tickled when I saw that. Not that you had to do that, but the way you did it.
Yeah.
A jack of all trades and master of none. Another kind of take on that one is if you want a job done right, do it yourself. We need to remember that if we're leading and managing others, we're there to lead and manage, not to do the work.
Yeah.
Leading and managing means working through others. We have our roles to do. We have things that we need to do.
Yeah.
But there are things that other people need to do too.
Good.
Okay. So we need to keep that in mind. The job is to create a place for them, to create a safe space where there's vision, where there's encouragement, where we're building a strong, positive culture. And we need to do those things, but we need to give people the opportunities to do things and well, and we need to release. We need to release to people.
Yeah, it's good.
One of the things that really irritates me a lot, if you're ever watching a Hollywood story and the leader, the general, is in front leading the charge against the enemy, and I think, okay, so what happens? The general's out in front. What happens when they shoot the general? The army falls apart. Give me Ray. It doesn't work that way. Everybody has their job to do. You've got to let other people do their jobs. And sometimes that's really hard to do because, again, we realize, we believe, we understand, we can see the things because we're in a place to envision the whole thing that they can't see from where they're at. And so part of it is just helping them to increase their vision. But at the same time, we know that we're seeing things, we understand things that not everybody does. And even if they know more about it than I do, I know what needs to be done here and now for two reasons. One is because God's put me there. Two is because I know this particular situation, and that person's coming in from the outside. So there's a lot of reasons why we just need to make sure everybody has an opportunity. And I'm not trying to don't want to do everything myself. I've got to let go. I've got to use some wisdom in making sure everybody's got what they need to do the work, to do what needs to be done, and also be able to tie it all together so that everybody's complement, not working against one another. Sometimes that's a challenge, but to make sure it's all tied together, and it's we've got the teamwork going on. And know your own strengths and weaknesses and stay in your own wheelhouse. And this is another part of what I heard and what Keith was talking about having your own slice of the vision, your own little wheelhouse of things that you do, and then help other people to grow into their giftings and grow into their assignments. The rising water lifts all boats, right? So, and sometimes you're going to have a job to do that isn't part of what God's called you to do. It's not part of your ultimate destiny. But still, first off, it needs to be done. And second off, God knows what he's doing when he put us there in the first place. And good is the enemy of the best. Good is the enemy of the best. One thing I realized a while back is that one of the most useful tactics the adversary uses against God's people is just to distract them, to get them to look somewhere else, to get their eyes off of the best. Back to why, making the best things. To compromise is one kind of distraction. Okay, it gets your eyes off the vision, the goal. So there's a lot of things we can do that get our eyes off of the best and say, well, this is good enough. A common phrase in the United States is good enough for government work. Which always irritated me because I've worked for governments too. So, but we just need to be very, very conscious about compromise and keep standard, because it's really easy when we're tired, when we're having a hard time pulling people together, when other people are distracted and stuff. It's so easy just to say, well, let's just do this for now. And sometimes we need to do that, but at the same time, we just need to be very careful about compromise. Compromise kills the image. It kills how people see you and what you do in your organization, your ministry. It kills reliability because all of a sudden the standards are shifted and you can't be counted on to do the same things that you were before. It flushes time down the tube. Okay. And it's often not worthy of our King. So, yeah, be careful. Be careful with that compromise. Be careful with it's good enough. Honestly, there are times when we've got to meet, we've got to get things done, and not the way I actually wanted to. Okay. Okay. Any comments, questions?
Very good. I think it's awesome.
Next week we'll do a little bit more on motivation to wrap it up, and we'll move into some other topics after that. And so, a little reminder, just think about these things. Come up with some proverbs or street smarts on your own that you'd like to share. Appreciate you guys sharing what you did, because they led us right into where we were going today. So great job on that. Thank you. Write down some takeaways, any thoughts, impressions, any things that you don't quite see, any things that you say, I'm not sure I agree with that. That's fine. We can talk about that for sure. Anytime the light goes on for you, okay, and then actually try to apply something. I appreciate you guys trying to apply stuff, because that's why we're here. Is we can sit and listen and stuff all day, but when we put things to work, that's when we're getting closer to achieving our vision, achieving our destiny, and doing things God put us here for in the first place. Okay. And the stuff will be online here later this evening. Later this evening for me, today for you. So, and hey, 4 minutes left. What do you think?
Yeah, that was great. Dwight, thank you for that. Was this the lesson that we missed out last week?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, awesome.
yes, it is.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
No, very good.
yeah,
Good.
and I need to get with you and see how you want to manage manage this. And so let me know what you think about. I can either try to condense things as we move forward to try to get it all done by the end date, or stretch it a day, whatever. It's up to you. However you want to manage it. Just let me know.
Yeah, no problems. I'll give you a call maybe later on. Just on my way to do some pastoral counseling.
Okay. Yeah. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
No problems. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, it's good to see y'all's faces again anyway.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
See you too. Mm,
Thank you, Dwight.
flashes.
Thanks, Dwight.
Bless you guys.
God bless.